with an update on negotiations in WWE and more. This is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report.
Before we move on, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Rambles with notifications on, and don't forget to like the video.
Mentioning an accolade that WWE Hall of Famer Jimmy Hart is set to receive, Ringside News noted that Memphis legend Jimmy Hart, highly praised for his illustrious wrestling career, is now being recognized for his contributions to the music industry. According to Action News 5 in Tennessee, WWE Hall of Famer and Memphis wrestling icon Jimmy Hart will be inducted into the Memphis Music Hall of Fame on September 27th. Hart, known as the Mouth of the South, was the lead vocalist of the 1960s rock band The Gentrys. The group is receiving this prestigious honor for their significant impact on the Memphis music scene. This induction not only celebrates Jimmy Hart's multifaceted career, but also highlights the lasting influence of The Gentrys in the world of music. Fans and admirers of both wrestling and music can look forward to this recognition of Hart's diverse talents and contributions. Revealing that she had issues with talent in WWE and felt some of them were mean, former WWE NXT star Kaya Saint said this on her YouTube channel.
When we first got there, the Nashville class, we had some trouble with some of the older girls. I don't know if it was just, I mean, I get it. We're all athletes. All of us are beautiful. I would probably feel some type of way. Actually, I don't get jealous for it. But I could understand why some of the older girls felt intimidated, and they translated that by being mean to us.
Talking about his signing of Mercedes Mone, AEW President Tony Khan told Sports Illustrated. We'll also have the chance to hear from Mercedes Mone, who defends the TBS title at Forbidden Door against New Japan Strong Champion Stephanie Vaquer in a title-for-title match. That is going to be incredible. Mercedes is one of the greatest free agent signings in pro wrestling history, one of the most significant signings ever in AEW history. Discussing his release from WWE, former member of the company's digital department, Matt Camp, said this on The Wrestling Mat. I don't work for WWE anymore. I haven't since early February. I don't think I've said this before, so I'll say it now. I was told by Michael Cole when it happened. He wasn't the one who let me go. It was an HR representative. I was told it had nothing to do with anything I did. It was a cost-cutting measure, or whatever you want to call it, tightening the budget. I reached out to Michael Cole and said, hey, anything you could tell me? He was basically, oh, okay, I guess you heard, blah, blah, blah. There were more changes coming to the team. I think McKenzie had been let go a little before that, and Kevin Patrick would move on after that, which I know was planned. I chose to keep quiet. It was my call. I was mildly shell-shocked at the time, but it came out a week after. And that's when I started to get the messages and all that stuff, including from people within the company. They didn't know. That's how I chose to handle it. WWE did not put any announcement out. I just disappeared. I disappeared off the bump. I disappeared off the shows. They made no mention of it, which admittedly I thought was pretty I'm not asking for a future endeavors thing or anything like that, but you know, that tells you what family means when you work for a company. It means you're a number, and that's what I was. I understand that, but that old family and we're family and all this, it's total horse. I had 3 weeks prior to my release, The Rock show up at headquarters and tell me what a big family this is and shaking hands. We're so happy to have you all aboard. Went through these town hall meetings after a bunch of cuts happened, and it was, you're still here for a reason, then you're gone. And people get let go. That's part of the business. I get that, but that old family BS, and Rock's like, let's take a picture with everybody in it because I want to show that I was here. I'm in that picture, and then I'm not here a couple of weeks later. It's all who's making the money. What's the bottom line? During that same show, Matt Camp said this about the pandemic and thoughts of featuring the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases on WWE's The Bump. As the months go by, Dr. Anthony Fauci was in the news a lot, and they're trying to get the word out about the vaccine and whatever, and okay, and he was making appearances everywhere and on television. It comes out. I found this out. I don't think I knew as it was happening, or maybe I knew right at the end. I've said this before. The Bump didn't get a lot of love within the company, but sometimes it was used in certain ways. The Bump could make money for the company with sponsorships and things like that. You go back and watch some of those pandemic episodes, we had the most random people on that aren't wrestling people. We had the Property Brothers on, we had some YouTuber from Mexico, we had Ken Jeong, we had Joel McHale, we had Keegan Michael Key, we had Randy Jackson, you name it. We had all these random people on, and they drew not that well. There was that wrestling bubble that I don't think people cared about celebrities. It's why I thought the Raw guest hosts never did that well unless they were in. If they were into it, it was a fun interview, but this was not about that. So conversations actually started and took place with the White House, the president. There were conversations happening with the White House about this is a big global entity, and there's another way to get the word out about Dr. Fauci, who became the main character of COVID and the pandemic coming on. That guy was going to appear on WWE programming to get the word out about getting the vaccine or vaccine awareness and all that. So actual communication did take place with the White House, and it was determined that this appearance, I think it was discussed in a few different ways, would happen on the Bump. Somehow that was the medium, and if you think about it, what else would it have been? Some kind of pre-tape they ran during Raw and SmackDown? Maybe, but this was the only live talk show to do it on. So okay, it probably would have been pre-taped. We taped a lot of stuff during the pandemic, but the idea was, here's the right forum. Do it on the Bump. There were conversations, and I will tell you, I guess from a digital regime, it's like 1.5 regimes ago. And there was a trust in our show, and I will say a trust specifically in me and Kayla Braxton to handle that. So part of the discussion was to involve top talent. Drew McIntyre, the other name floated about. I'm not going to speculate on anything, but Sasha Banks was the other name. It was supposed to be them, and it was going to happen. I'm 99% sure that Stephanie McMahon was on board with this. She was, as far as I know, on board with this idea. So it got pretty far down the line, and it had one more step: Vince. Now, initially, I was told that Vince was okay with it. You got to remember, not that everything went through Vince, but a lot did. This was a big deal. It was a big thing for the company, so he would have to sign off on this. Initially, I was told he was on board, and when it came down to, hey, this is gonna happen, the details have all been figured out. I don't know if in the end it was gonna be Drew and Sasha. I think Drew was gonna be involved. It was just gonna be, I think the idea was a roundtable discussion of the pandemic and living in it and being entertainers in it, getting the word out about the vaccine, all that. But Vince had to give the final thumbs up, and he did this thumbs down, as you may expect, considered too political. It was one of the few times he got directly involved with the show that I know of. Vince said no, and it didn't happen. That was the end of it. I think the intent was good. I don't know how it would have been received. I think it would have been a big deal for the company to do it, but that was considered political. We think this is political, so we're not going to do it. So Anthony Fauci did not join the esteemed guest list of Bump guests because Vince said, nah, not going to happen. Giving his perspective on Darby Allin's run in AEW thus far, Booker T noted on his Hall of Fame podcast, "Look at Darby Allin, look at Darby. I mean, over the last 5 years, this company has been in existence. Darby Allin, I mean, he's had a great run with Sting. I don't want to take that away from him or anything like that, but I think Sting got more of the rub that Darby Allin did. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong there, but I feel that way. I don't feel like Darby Allin has been built to the star that he could have been 5 years later." Back in 2020, during the pandemic, Braun Strowman made a controversial remark regarding wrestlers having financial struggles from being out of work, as Strowman wrote, "Here we go with more of the somebody pay for my bills stuff. If you can't afford to pay your bills, maybe you should change professions. That's why I quit strongman. I loved it, but I couldn't afford to live, so instead of making a GoFundMe or a Patreon, wanting someone else to take care of me, I went out and worked harder than I ever have in my life to get to where I am." What happened to being accountable for your own actions? And for anyone that goes, "That's easy for you to say, you're a WWE superstar." Just an FYI, 7 years ago I moved to Florida with everything I owned in a Kia Soul with $150 to my name when I started this. Touching on the prospect of Ricochet joining AEW, as he let WWE know he will not be re-signing with the company, Will Ospreay told Shaq Wrestling, "Honestly, I've said this to a lot of people recently. I've been shouting his name off in the distance for years, and I really do mean it, years. It's only now, just because his contract is coming up, that people are thinking something's going to happen. Listen, I speak to Ricochet every now and again, and there's nothing been said between us about whether something is going to pop off. But honestly, I hope he does. I really hope he does, because I miss him as a friend. I do think there's money on the table to do a rematch, but I also think there's money on the table to do a tag team." Sticking with the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay said this regarding the record low viewership for AEW Dynamite last week, telling CBS Sports, "It sucks that it was such a low rating, but it's just motivating me, and I'm sure it's motivating others to try and think out of the box and come back swinging. I'm not someone who ignores that type of I see it and I take note of it. I put it in the checkbook and I make sure whatever we do next week, we come back swinging. We shouldn't ignore criticism or shy away from it. We're still a 5-year company and we're still hitting the ropes with these things. For me, AEW still has lots of growing pains to go through. If we look back 5 years to what WWE was doing, they were at a low, but the way they're thriving right now is inspiring to everyone. It should be something to hit. We need to change the bar and see what we must do to change things up. Like I said, I'm not the type of person to shy away from it. I enjoy criticism." Going over the profitability of a recent AEW pay-per-view, Ringside News wrote that AEW Double or Nothing 2024 took place on May 26, 2024 at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Paradise, Nevada. Fans were excited, but the event didn't generate huge profits for Tony Khan's company. The Wrestling Observer newsletter noted that Mike Mansory filed tax credit forms in Nevada listing expenses for the television taping and Double or Nothing pay-per-view show on May 24th and May 25th. It was noted that those shows were barely profitable at this point. If you consider between $694,000 and $900,000 in gate revenue between the two shows, because there are conflicting numbers, and $3 million from pay-per-view buys, $150,000 in merchandise, $500,000 from TNT for Collision, then the weekend is profitable. But not by a lot at all. The company also lacks the corporate sponsorships that WWE and UFC have to really help drive up revenue. The expenses reportedly included $150,000 for talent airfare, $150,000 for broadcast production, $50,000 for catering, $14,000 for cleanup, $7,000 for comms package, $70,000 in airfare for non-talent, $2,000 in ground transportation, $250,000 in hotel expenses, $60,000 for security, $30,000 for LED screens, $75,000 for lighting and rigging, $100,000 for local management services, $10,000 for medical, $400,000 for operations and technical support crew, $15,000 for production consultants, $7,500 for miscellaneous show props, $110,000 for rent, $30,000 for rental cars, $66,000 for rigging and riggers, $700 for robocams and other tech, $40,000 for sound package, $135,000 for stagehands, $10,000 for staging, $50,000 for transportation and $2 million for talent. It was also noted that Polestar had the audited numbers for Double or Nothing at $9,099 paid for $582,204. AEW had previously stated the paid attendance was 7,500, but there were actually over 9,000 in the building, and the gate was just under $800,000. As he is claimed to be no longer under WWE contract, Dijak said this about his reaction to being drafted from NXT to Raw recently, telling Fightful, "I'm sitting there during the draft. The draft is a shoot. Nobody knows what's happening. I'm watching the names. There is an angel and demon on my shoulder. Part of me is sitting there grumpy because I thought it would be funny and I'm in character. Why would I stand and applaud? Internally, I'm thinking, you've been told there are plans for you to be in the main event picture for the NXT Championship. Also, your contract is up in a month or so. There is an argument in my head. Do you want to stay in NXT with Trick and have this cool feud? Will they renew you in NXT? That will be weird and an awkward conversation. You're on a main roster contract still. It's a weird middle ground. I watch the names get listed off as they keep going. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm thinking the further this goes, the more likely I am to be in the supplemental draft. If I'm in the supplemental draft, I'm effed. It just means we don't care. I'm watching the names, they get to the last names. Maybe if it's on TV, it's salvaged. I think the last name is Blair Davenport. Everyone is clapping. Please still be in NXT. Whoever was doing the announcing, they were like, we have one more announcement. The second I heard those words, everything clicked together. I'm so screwed. I texted my wife or friends or all of them. I think I'm completely screwed. I'm connecting the dots. My contract ends in 1 month. They're going to call me up in the supplemental draft. That means they don't have anything for me. That means I'm going to come down to the wire. That means they're going to bend me over the barrel or fire me. I'm connecting all these dots. Meanwhile, there are cameras on me. And I have to play pretend that I'm happy. In a sense, I am, because they're cheering for me and supporting me. I'm like, none of these people know what I know. Maybe they did, but certainly not the talent. I didn't just go to NXT. I went back to the Performance Center. I live in New Hampshire. I'm flying down to the PC weeks at a time to train with people, do classes with the younger kids, and give back. I'm all in on this Performance Center lifestyle. They're all shoot happy for me. In my head, I'm like, I'm effed. I try to stay positive. You're on Raw. Maybe there is a plan. I go to the first Raw. There is nothing on the sheet. You start playing the WWE game. Maybe it's this. The more you try to justify it, the more you go deeper in your brain. Yup, you're effed. Recalling his no DQ match against Damian Priest on Raw in November of 2021, Dijak said this on Twitch about a conversation he had with Vince McMahon after the bout. All of this putting body through punishment just to impress Vince, and I go to the back and he's fixated on the fact that I didn't grab someone aggressively enough in a break that nobody on television saw. That was the moment where in my head I just went, oh, they're looking for a reason to not like me. Because it's pro wrestling, right? It's fake fighting. You can make up any you want. I was like, oh, the office wants me to fail. They're actively looking for reasons to not use me. Speaking about retirement from pro wrestling, AJ Styles told WrestleManiac UK, you know, my brain's going, we don't have a lot of time. My body's going, we can go. No, we can't. It's an argument between my body and my brain on how much longer we can go. I can tell you it won't go much longer. Time's running out really quick. As Kayla Braxton made her final appearance for WWE on SmackDown, more information regarding contract talks between her and the company were provided, with it said in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that WWE and Kayla Braxton were in talks for a renewal, but then she made the call not to sign a new deal. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.